Welcome to 2025 VBCC Connect. This is a day of learning where your feedback, your actual feedback, has shaped what our agenda is going to be for today. You asked for true learning sessions, and that's what we're going to deliver. This year, we're committed to elevating your Sage experience and helping you maximize your Sage tools like never before. My name is Kristen Baumgartner, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm excited to introduce you to Greg Tisdale. He is VBCC's Sage 100 practice leader. Greg is going to be presenting the session, What's New in version 2025. I want to thank Greg very much for his time, and I'm going to hand it over to him.
Great. Well, Kristen, thank you for the introduction. Appreciate that. And welcome, everyone. Thanks for taking some time out of your day today to sit with us and go through this presentation. Our topic for today is what's new in Sage 100 version 2025. So here's some of the topics that we'd like to talk about today. These bullets that you see here are not all the enhancements and developments that Sage has put into 2025. These are some I cherry picked out that I thought would be relevant and maybe had the most bang for their buck. There's a couple that I will add at the end, depending on time, a few other things that I think may be pertinent. There is one topic here on the board, which is production management. There has been improvements there, but since so few of us in the VBCC community are using production management, I'm not going to show that today, but I would like, if anyone is interested, please reach out to me offline or after the webinar, and we can certainly set up some time to go over those changes. But I did want to just make everyone aware that they are out there, and I know there are a few of you that do use PM, so please just note that. And first thing I'm going to jump into is the extended invoice numbers, and then I'm going to move into audit tracking. We have some new features there for sales orders and purchase orders. There has been some major improvements on the purchase order side with regards to an RFP process. So now we can actually request quotes from your vendors and be able to track and promote those quotes into orders. And we'll go through that process. General ledger, just we're going to quickly walk through a reversing entry and general ledger. We'll show you a few of the new features in inventory and point out some of the things that have changed in sales order. So let me jump right into it, and let's get started going into looking at how you would go about expanding the customer number. One of the things I would like to preface this topic with before we jump into it is if you have any third-party products, and I know many of you do, please make sure you check with us before you implement this, if this was something you wanted to do, just to make sure that the third party is compatible with this change. I think most of them are, but we would like to just take the extra step and verify that. So let me go into accounts receivable options under setup. And on the, on the main tab here, there is an option now underneath accounts receivable divisions for allow entry of expanded customer numbers. And what this is going to do, if we check this, it's going to give us the option to expand our customer number from 7 characters to up to 20 characters. Okay, so I'm going to check this, and it's going to come up and tell me, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what's going to happen. And this is a non-reversible process. So if you wanted to test this out, we could do this in a test company in advance, just to make sure that there are no issues, even though the third parties may say everything is okay. And it wouldn't hurt for us to do a company copy and do a test in those third, in that test company and just verify that everything works and plays nicely together. Now, if I want to move forward with this, I simply just have to say yes. And being that I'm in demo data, this moves relatively quickly. It's going to pop up and say, do you want to activate the customer number expansion? I'm going to say yes. And that's really it. Now, those of you with larger sets of data might take a little longer, but it is a pretty quick process. So what does that look like now? I'm going to come into customer maintenance, and existing customer numbers are as they were. However, now you'll have the ability to expand it up to 20 characters. So you can use any amount of characters up to 20 once the expansion has been implemented. This will also, in this process, update any of your reports, forms. Custom forms that are already created may have to be tweaked in order to accommodate the new customer number sizing, but any of the standard reports and forms will automatically increase and will accept that new customer. Okay. Next change I'd like to show you is in accounts payable. They've changed some of the formats of the screens. So for your invoice payment selection, if you are to go to your select, you have your traditional view, and now you have the ability to toggle back and pick and choose how you would like to select your invoices for payment. So I can use this and use checkboxes, or I can do it by multiple selections and pick and choose which by just highlighting and using the control. So two different views. It's a simple toggle back and forth. It will remember the last one that you were in. So if you choose one over the other or you prefer one or the other, it's going to remember that the next time you go in. Okay. I mean, not a huge thing, but for some of us, that was a request that's been out there a long time, and Sage has finally incorporated that into the product. Um, One of the bigger things that I feel that they've done that will be very helpful is audit tracking. So in sales order and purchase order now, you have the ability on the sales order and on the purchase order to track changes. Um, in the past, we've always been able to do this with the master files. So customers, vendors, general ledger, we had full audit tracking on those master files for any changes. However, sales orders and purchase orders, we can only track the last person that updated it. Now we can turn that on. So let's go in and I'll show you how that works. So in sales order, if I go under sales order options and I go over to my history tab. On my history tab, I have a new section here for sales order audit, and the sales orders changes to track. If I hit the drop down, there's none or all. So we set that to all. And then if you want to track the changes in detail, we check that box. I think I would recommend, all and the detail. That will give you the most information. We have the ability to filter those reports. So more is sometimes better in this case. So I would activate both of those, all and check. Now, what is that going to do? It's going to give me two things. If I go into sales order entry, and let me grab a sales order, I have some. Okay. On the sales order main panel now, in the header, there is a little gearbox icon here. That is the audit viewer. So as long as this sales order is active and in the open, we'll have the ability to come in and drill in to see who made any changes. So if I click on this, you can see I have a couple of entries here. If I want to see detail, this is a summary. I simply drill into it. And here's the detail. So this was the record being created, and you can see there's data in almost every field. Then here, if I were to look here, you can see up on the header, the ship via was changed. It was originally red. Someone changed it to blue. And you can also see here is where you'll see who the user is and the timestamp of when that happened.
Greg, we did have a quick question come in.
Yeah,
Does the accounts payable module also have the vendor number expansion?
this is good. Accounts payable, the last change I believe was just to the invoice number. I don't think that that's available. I'm pretty sure that it hasn't.
Okay, Pam, we'll follow up with you directly and get you an answer on that one.
Yeah, I'll just double checking, but I'm pretty sure that's the case.
I don't remember I saw that either in the AP changes.
Not in this, but in the previous list, it was the invoice. Sorry, the purchase order and the invoice have been expanded, but not the vendor
Vendor
master
number.
as of yet.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Okay, let me just, all right, back. So if we come in here, let's just say we're going to change this to 2, and we'll update the price to 90. Accept that. Go back just to show you. There's my change from right now. And it's going to show me everything that was updated, including the fields in the summary in the header that are updated by the changing in the price. So this information can be printed. This information can be exported to Excel. Now, in addition to seeing this live on the screen, there's also a report that's been added under the reports in sales order. Oops, excuse me. For your sales order audit report. And this report can be filtered so that you can choose what actions you want to see, what changes you'd like to see by user, by date. Obviously, as time goes on, this audit can get rather large. There is a purge function. Uh, we would probably hide this field for every day and then just reserve it for 1 or 2 people that may at some point want to be able to purge the data if needed. So you have the report and you have the view. The last thing on the sales order topic I'd like to mention is even after an order has moved into history, so you've posted it, it's moved out of the open, it's now in sales order quote history. You also have the ability on the screen there. So I'm going to use that gear icon to open up and see if there had been any changes. Okay, so even after this order, now this order is still active because we haven't posted it, but it writes in the history as an active order. Once it's completed an invoice, this will change status is complete, and you'll still be able to see all the edits that were made on that particular sales order. So if you ever had to go back in time, to something 3 months ago, 6 months ago, once you've had this activated and turned on, you'd be able to get that data as to who made any changes. Okay. Now, in addition to sales order, we have that same functionality now in purchase order. So also on the history tab in purchase order setup options, same selections, purchase order audit. What would you like to do? Again, my recommendation is to turn it on because I think it would be helpful. And then if you are turning it on, just go ahead and track additions in detail. And very similar to what we just saw in the sales order side, we have the gear icon, and it's going to show us any tracking or changes, excuse me. All right. And the same thing applies here in the purchase history report, in the purchase history inquiry, excuse me. You'll also be able to reference any changes after the PO has been completed and purged. So it never really goes away. You always have the ability to look back. And then also the report exists now in purchase order, just as we saw in sales order for the printed audit, and pretty much the same kind of function in terms of selection here and controlling what you want to see. So I think those two features are, pretty important. It's something that I know in all my years of doing this that people have been asking for a long time. So it's good to see that Sage has finally responded before I retire to add that functionality. Now, staying on the theme of purchase order, I think the real or the largest change in this version is the ability to request quotes from your vendor. So it's an RFQ, RFP, whatever nomenclature you'd like to use, but it is a true quoting request. So there's a couple of things that have to happen in order to turn that on. All right. So if we hop over here to history, oh, excuse me, Sunday edition. Oh, here's where I want to start. First thing is there's a couple of, before we turn it on, is there's a couple of parameters that we can set up in terms of how we want to use it. So we can set up, do we want to default the order date when generating the purchase order from the original quote that we set up, or not? We can leave that off and we can enter in what date we want to use. The number of default days before that particular quote will expire. So that's completely in your control. And then what are we going to do with costs? Do we want to show costs to your vendors, or do we want to keep it at zero cost so that when you print it and send it, it's up to the vendor to fill it in? I think, I have mine set to that because I think that makes the most sense. Give them, don't show anything. And we're actually, since we're requesting the quote, let them fill in the costs. But you can prompt it, use the standard, use your average, use your last, or use your cost hierarchy, which will use any special pricing that you would have or costing you have set up related to that item and that vendor. So just a couple of options there. Let me close out of here, and then I'll go show you how it works. So I'm going to open up purchase order entry, and just like any other standard purchase order that we create, we're going to take the next number. But here at the order date, just like if we were doing a quote and sales order, we hit the drop down for order type, and now we have a quote and purchase order. All right. And then I'm going to pick my vendor or vendors, I should say. So let's start with, I'll take Airway. We'll come in, we're going to put a couple things on order. Order two of these. And you can see because I had my unit costs set to 0 in the options, it pre-populates at 0. So, but again, you can choose to have it populate with something and then you pick what value that's going to be based on what's in that option drop down. Pick more. And then, of course, you can add your comments, any other additional information you need. Now, that's only one vendor. Obviously, when we do this, we're probably going to send it out to multiple. So how do we do that? Well, if we hit this little plus sign, we're going to request a quote from other vendors. We hit that plus sign, and it's going to pop up another grid entry. And here we can select additional vendors to reach out to for the quote. So I'm going to pick 3. I can, while I'm in this grid, just if I had to, I can drill into the vendor. So you do have a way to go back and look and see if you have any open POs already, any information related to that vendor, similar to what you can do by clicking onto the vendor number while you're on the main panel. But that's your drill down there. I'm going to say OK. And there's a couple ways I can print this. I can quick print it. There is a new option here for quote printing. So if I want to print a range of quotes, I can do that. Or I can simply just quick print, and it knows because it is a quote that it should just bring up the quote printing. All right. And now if I preview this, you're going to see there's our first for Airway, but I also have one for IBM and I have one for Stevens. And these can all be set up to go out electronically, just so Paperless Office does electronic forms delivery, does have an option for this now. So you can set up, your quotes, your purchase order quotes to go out electronically. And this would send out either print, email, or fax, all 3 of these out, depending on how you have that set up. Okay. I'm going to close out of here. So next, we send those out, we get a response from all 3 vendors, and then we can decide which vendor is going to win that particular quote, so to speak. So let me bring my quote back up. So I have my 3 vendors. Now, one thing I can't do from here is change the vendor based on the entry grid. I do have to go in and actually change it physically in the lookup. So if I want it to be O1 Stevens instead of our original, I just simply change it. Everything stays the same. And then I'm at the point where I can, in essence now, promote the quote. There's a few ways, like everything else in Sage, to do this. To me, the simplest way, if I'm just doing one off or one at a time, I'm just going to do it right from the screen. I can simply check there, quote ready to generate. I'm going to come in and say my cost is, put my cost in. Okay. Add any additional information that needs to be added, any additional comments. If you need, now that you know which vendor, maybe there's something particular, but now it's going to become, you're going to take this quote, turn it into a true active standard type purchase order. So from here, I can hit generate order, or I can do the auto generate feature, which allows me to do this for a range of quotes. So I'm not necessarily doing it one at a time. So if I had a bunch that I had done and I was releasing them or promoting them all at once, I could do that through the auto generate here and save a little time. The key is in the process is the quote does have to be checked. So then I hit quick print here. Oh, sorry, I meant to do this here, generate order. If I want to include the comments, if I want to include the memos, hit proceed. It's going to tell me then what's the next number. This is the new purchase order, which it will be a standard type purchase order that gets released. And close out of here. I come in, there's my new, and you can see it's a standard order. My screen's needs a little cleanup here, but here's the quote that it was generated from. So there is a tie back to the original quote. This is fully active now, so now I could do any other edits or changes that might be needed. Then I can quick print this, email it off to the vendor, or print it and send it, whichever is the process. Then I'm going to hit accept. And I want to go back and show you that the quote is maintained. It moves to completed status, and then based on the date, it will purge as part of either period end processing, or if you run the purge utilities, and that'll just move it out of the open. It then will exist in the history files. So you always have a record of the original quote, who was on that. So you can see all the vendors that were originally, or this was originally sent out to for quote, and then see who won it, obviously, and then go forward from there. Now, one of the things I do want to show you, I'm going to actually go and receive this because there is another feature I think that is worth mentioning. So I'm going to grab my standard PO here. Change this to 2, right? Give this a lot. And give this one. There we go. Now we're fully distributed. So I just want to make a note that in 2025, there's also the ability when you do a receipt of goods that if you had ordered 3, in this case, we're receiving 2, but this is going to complete the purchase order. They're not going to send us that extra unit. So, obviously in the past, in order for this PO to complete, you would need the purchased ordered quantity, received quantity, and invoice quantity all to match. But now there's an option here to clear back order upon accept. So we're going to hit that. We'll go ahead and post this. I just want to take this all the way through for you to see. Um, All right. Now, we go back and look at the purchase order. So the purchase order has moved in the receive status. If I come to my lines, I have, you can see I have the 2 ordered, 2 received, 3 ordered, 2 received, none back ordered. So basically we're saying that once we invoice this for the 2 and the 2, we're going to close this out. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, we're going to fully invoice it. So this may be helpful in ensuring that we have less work to do on our purchases clearing account as part of our month-end reconciliations. So now if we go, if everything worked correctly, if we look this up, we should be in completed status. So this will be able to be purged as part of, again, if you're the number of days you're set to retain completed POs, part of period end will clean that out. Or if you were to manually run the purge utility to purge completed POs, it'll get rid of it as well. And no reconciliation required in the purchases clearing. So I think that's kind of a new feature that may be helpful to some of you. Um, let's see. In addition, in purchase order, we have the ability to make uh, cancellation codes required. So our cancellation codes are under setup, and we have ability to add new ones. Now Sage provides theirs. These cannot be deleted. Maybe they can. Yeah. So the predefined ones kind of stuck with, but you can make them inactive so that they're not used if you just wanted to replace those with your own, or you can leverage the ones that already exist. But it's just free form. Um, um, something. And you can just build them out yourself. And then what's going to happen is when you go in and attempt to delete a purchase order, it's going to ask you for a cancellation code. Otherwise, it's not going to let you out. And that is to something that needs to be turned on. So that's back in purchase order options under history. There is ability here to check this box that says cancel reason code required when deleting orders and quotes. So that just needs to be turned on if you want to use that functionality. And then what's going to happen is if you come in, let's find a older purchase order. If I hit delete, Let's see, this one maybe. And then it pops up that box. I have to pick from my predefined selections, and then I can delete it. So then now I have the ability to go back and see why POs were deleted if in the event that they are. Okay. So that's an additional change to PO. So PO got quite a few changes in this upgrade. So which, if all of you for those of you who have been on stage for a long time, you know that purchase order has kind of lagged behind, some of the changes that they provided for sales order. So I think this was just the time that they're getting caught up. Let's see. General ledger now there's the ability to reverse journal entries or journal postings using the date that they were actually posted, meaning that if I come into general ledger and I open up one of my accounts, let's try yours, and I go to my transactions, find something here. There's a new icon over on the right. This is the journal reversal. All I have to do, and if you note the date is 5/31, it's going to say the reversal is complete. And I'm going to say, okay. Now this hasn't been posted yet. It's going to write into the general journal entry. And we have the ability to go in there and edit it before we do anything with it. So we can still change it. But it just kind of creates the transaction for you. So here, if I look at my flashlight, I should have my reversal here. And it's the reversal of the journal. That was the posting date. I'll stick with there's the reversing entry. Again, you can make changes here. There's my posting. Update that. And now if I come back into account maintenance, find my GL, go to transactions, 5/31. There's my reversal. So not a giant thing, but just something that helps, maybe helpful in the process, just to kind of speed things up. Um, let's see. I should have stayed on this when I was in purchase order, because another change to purchase order that I'd like to mention and is return of goods entry. For those of you that use this, so in the RTV for return to vendor, if you're doing a return and in the current version, you do a RTV, it's going to reopen the purchase order for the quantities that you're returning. So it's going to take it out of inventory, put the quantities back on back order in the purchase order, and in essence, put the purchase order back into back order status. If you're returning goods and say you're returning for credit, and you're not returning it for replacement, and you do not want the purchase order reopened, they gave us an option in return to vendor now not to do that. So if we go back and let's use our PO we just received, there is an option on the header here on the main tab, so to back order PO. And if I uncheck that, it's not going to reopen the PO for the quantities that I'm returning. Let's see. I'm just going to return one of these. Okay. Now that will, during the posting process, is going to take that one unit out of inventory, not reopen the PO, and then I can assume that, I'm going to set it up for a credit to receive a credit from the vendor. My return. Let me just post that. Back into purchase order entry, if that worked correctly. So it did not put that back on back order. It did reduce my receive quantity. And if I'm not going to bring this back in, now I can do my change. Accept it. That should go back into complete status. Oh, I know why, because I didn't reference the invoice number. So it's still waiting for that to be invoiced, but it's not going to back order the one that we returned. Let's see. A couple of things in inventory to touch base on, not anything huge. However, there are some new fields added on the additional tab in inventory for UPC and EAN number. And there's some different variations of UPC. So your universal product code or your European article number, which is the EAN. So you have UPC-A, UPC-E, EAN 8, EAN 13. And these are all for barcodes and printing barcodes. So your UPC-A is typically a 12 character North American UPC code, and UPC-E is an 8 character. EAN is your European other. I won't profess to be an expert at the barcode types. And then the actual UPC code. So if we put this back to UPC-A, we gotta go out to 12. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a new alias item code or general alias for that UPC code so that it's available to print either on your labels or anywhere you need to print the barcode based on that UPC/EAN number. So just something that's helpful, and for those of you who are printing barcode labels, just a little more information that you can keep within the system. Let's see. There was one new feature additional in accounts receivable and cash receipts entry. Create a new batch. Let's see. If I have a customer that is on credit hold, it's going to just notify me while I'm in the cash receipt. You can see now that there's a customer on credit hold. This is just for informational purposes so that if you are receiving cash and maybe that customer is waiting for another shipment or someone needs to be notified that they had to make payment, it just gives you that information here, and so you don't have to wait to print a report and see it further down the line. So just again, probably something more informational, but one of the new features that they have added. And also I'm going to jump back to inventory, just a couple of new features on the physical count. This is the ability on the physical count worksheet to sort by product line, if that's helpful. I mean, you've always been able to run it by product line, but this will give you the ability to do additionally a sort by product line. So just something there. And that's pretty much concludes what I wanted to show you guys today. Kristen, that brings us up right about to our time limit, and good place now to maybe cut over if there's any questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Greg. Great information on what's available in 2025. It does look like Sage is still making updates to the programming.
Mhm.
We're expecting with its release of 2026, I believe sometime in April is it targeted next year?
Yes, that's their typical date that they're shooting for. May end up in land in May, but I think we'll be pretty close.
Okay. I did have one question come in, wanted to ask you.
Mhm.
The question is, how can I check if my third-party software is compatible with 2025?
We can do that for you. So we'll do that on your behalf.
Yeah, and just an extension of that, we have really good relationships with all the ISVs, so they give us answers really quick if we don't actually already know, because most of the things we do keep a track on as to when they're releasing for version compatibility. So,
Yes, and we typically wait after the newest version for the first product update. I would say that most of the ISVs are in compliance relatively quickly within a few weeks. I mean, I know that sometimes operations management from endpoint takes a little bit longer. I mean, it's a bigger product, so theirs tends to lag a little bit. But I'm pretty confident saying that, upon release, it's within a few weeks that 95% of all the third parties will be ready.
yeah. And again, if you ever have questions on that, you can always reach out to us.
Yeah.
If anyone does have any additional questions, again, you can reach out to your favorite VBCC consultant. You can obviously reach out to Greg. Greg, would you mind putting your contact information
Yes,
up
I
as well?
will. I
All
will
right.
get absolutely.
Perfect. So again, anyone can reach out to Greg directly as well if they've got additional questions about this version release or questions in general. I would like to thank Greg very much for putting together this presentation and all the great information that you gave over to us, Greg. And I also want to thank everyone in attendance. We truly thank you for attending VBCC Connect. We know your time is valuable and appreciate that you chose to spend some of it with us. We really hope you enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.